Hello and welcome to another episode of Bones Wargaming, a show with no bells, no whistles, no frills, just a man, a camera, and his game. This episode, once again, continuing on with my Civil War theme, which is almost in its third month now. I've been doing Civil War games since March 11th, so we're closing in on 3 months here. This time, as I said before, we're going to Against the Odds magazine from 2006 or 7. Games issue number 19. The Michael Ornella's game, Not War, But Murder, dealing with the Cold Harbor situation. This game picks up after the missed opportunity that Lee had at the North Anna River with the inverted V and all that stuff. And I'll kind of show you here in a second what I'm talking about with this. So, things are a little better here at Barebones Wargaming headquarters. And I'm able to get this to the table faster. Plus, I was happy with the way the video turned out with the old Warhorse computer. I was a little surprised. Actually surprised in more ways than one. I was surprised it uploaded as fast as it did. That was interesting. But as I say at the end of Conan the Destroyer, that is another story for another time. So, let's take a look at this game here. This is an area impulse game. For those of you familiar with those ones, going way back to the Avalon Hill, I believe the original one, I don't know of one earlier than this, the Storm over Arnhem, and then of course evolving the system through the other ones, Thunder at Cassio, Turning Point Stalingrad, Breakout Normandy, and Montgomery's Gamble, also being another one. As well as Slaughterhouse, which was actually another Against the Odds magazine with the Four Roads to Moscow issue that came out. The annual came out a few years back as well. So, alrighty. So here we go. Now, for those of you that are old hands at this, I will point out a few things that are a little different. There's a few things that are a little... You have to kind of rewire your thinking a tiny bit with it. A lot of stuff you'll see here is normal stuff. The back and forth impulses, the sunset die roll, those kind of things. The activation's a little different, which is understandable. After all, this is the Civil War, and all those other games were basically World War II era games. Yeah, actually, they're all World War II era games. So there are going to be some differences, some nuances, some things to kind of pay attention to here as you go through. Alright, so here we go. Now, as I said, we start here way at the top on May the 27th, right after the missed chance at the North Anna River. And you can see that here, where Hancock's Corps was basically across by itself and was separated, although they didn't pick up on this. The Union did not. And one of the things that was interesting about reading Stephen Sears, Lee's lieutenants, he was very, very, not quite harsh, but he was very, not even scathing. I don't know what the word is I want, but he was very sharp. Maybe that's just the best word to go with. In his criticism of how Grant used his cavalry during the Overland Campaign. Now, the cavalry is here in this particular game, but the lack of using it for intelligence gathering and such, made a big difference on things. So they didn't realize the Confederates were squarely here, and if Lee hadn't been sick, and I think if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I read a book about this, I think Hill was also sick, A.P. Hill. They weren't able to launch the blow and strike and try to catch Hancock all by himself over on that side of North Anna River. And Gordon Ray, in his 5-book set, has a whole volume just about the North Anna River if you're interested in that sort of thing. Okay. All right, the goal, of course, naturally enough, for the Union is to get all the way down here to Richmond and basically to be able to get a unit in here at the end of any daylight impulse, not even the turn, just an impulse. But you have to trace the supply line back to one of 2 points, either Old Church, which is off to the side over here, or all the way back to Chesterfield Station here north of Richmond. So, alright, now the Union has the first move on the first turn, and then after that the Confederates get to go first every single day. Alright, So, of course, with entrenchments and stuff, which is naturally a factor in this game built in and stuff, maneuvering is a premium. So basically, each turn you're going to start out first with a very important die roll that the Union does, and that's to find out how Robert E. Lee is. Because again, he was pretty sick. It seems to me, if I remember correctly, I read somewhere he had a mild heart attack at one point. It might have been before or after Gettysburg, somewhere around there. So let's see how Lee's health is. So on a 1 through 4, Lee is just spiffy. But on a 5 or a 6, he's sick, which means he's going to get put on the track for the next turn. So for this particular one here, here's Mr. Lee. And there he is. Mr. Robert E. Lee is fine. Old Granny, as people called him at first, but of course later on, that very much changed. Okay. So now, for each impulse, you have a couple of options here. Okay. With an assault impulse, that basically is just like a regular impulse in an area movement game. You can move your units around, move into enemy turf, and attack. Now there is a little difference here. You can either use your leader, like Robert E. Lee, to activate, and if the leader activates, he can activate all the units in one spot, regardless of who the corps is, who they belong to. They can be independent units, they can be mixed units in the same spot, doesn't matter. And the leader doesn't even have to be in that spot in order to do that. Okay. You can also do corps leaders. As you can see over here, there's Jubal Early, as Robert E. Lee called him, my bad old man. You can activate him, and all the units that belong to his corps in that space can activate along with him. Okay. The other thing you can do is activate units individually, one at a time, and move them around as well too. And then independent units, which are units that don't belong to a particular corps, they can activate by themselves, or they can activate with the active leader. So independent units, which there are a few in the game, can, but like you can't activate, like here at the beginning of the game, you have A.P. Hill and Anderson both in the same spot, 1st and 3rd Corps. If Hill activates, he can't activate units from the 1st Corps. It doesn't work like that. The only way you can do that is if Lee is active. Okay, then when leaders are done, they're exhausted and they're finished. Now, interesting thing in this game is units are not exhausted except by combat. Okay, typically in area impulse games, you have units that once you move, they're exhausted, and then there needs some kind of replenishment. So many days, you know, like the old Turning Point Stalingrad thing, we put the little markers on them, the triangle and, you know, the square and all that jazz. Or like Breakout Normandy, you use your supply points to replenish people on the night turns. Here, your unit is not exhausted by just moving. Okay, so it's a little different animal here, so you got to kind of keep that in mind as you're playing the game. Of course, replacements are nowhere near as plentiful either. More about that in a minute. The other thing, of course, you can do is you can pass or you can entrench. If you have an infantry unit in the space, you can entrench. Either place a level 1 entrenchment or bump it up to level 2. Okay? Alright, now, since Lee is healthy, and of course, as I just said, you know, about the whole strike them a blow bit with Hancock and everything, I'm going to get Hancock out of there, because otherwise what could happen is if you don't move Hancock out of this space up here, okay, then you let the Confederates go. Lee is active. He can activate Hill and Anderson and try to smash Hancock's corps, beat them up pretty bad. And so I'm not going to allow that to happen. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to activate Grant, who is just up to the north of all this here. And I'm going to use him to activate everybody in Hancock's space so I can pull everybody back across the river and start sending them on their march. Okay? So, the army leader doesn't have to be in the active area. So he doesn't have to be here with Hancock. He just needs to be, so to speak. So I'll flip Grant over. And I'll use him, well, actually, yeah, I will have to because he's not in the active area. But I'm getting ahead of myself flipping him over. So let's go ahead and we'll move these guys out. Now, again, a lot of this is usual stuff, you know, 1 movement factor, 2, move into a vacant area, 3 with an exhausted enemy unit, 4 with a fresh enemy unit. The tricky thing in this game is that if you move in a space adjacent to a fresh enemy artillery unit, you spend 2 movement factors, which, again, it can make it a little difficult as the Union tries to come down here and make its end run and get around to Richmond, if you place your Confederate units well and don't have your artillery exhausted, you can slow them down enough so they can't like make a sudden mad dash to Richmond. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll activate here, starting with impulse 0, and we're just going to go ahead and pull everybody back across the river, the North Anna. At least this part of the army. I'm going to leave the other part over here at Knoll Station as is. So, Potter here is actually from 9th Corps, and I'm going to go ahead and activate him and bring him back to Chesterfield Station. So that'll be 1. And now he's going to go over here, which is across the river from Hill, with that fresh artillery, and he'll move into there for 3 movement points. Hancock, of course, will be activated because the army leader can activate corps leaders as well too in the space, and we're going to withdraw them and go 1, and then I'm going to send them out here. Make sure my camera's getting all this enough. I'm going to send them out a bit of a big arc here to kind of swing down and start the race for Richmond. So let me take Hancock here, and we're going to cross back over the river to Chesterfield Station. So that's 1. Now you have to be careful with your bridges because there's only so many units that can cross a bridge on a turn. The most is 5 combat units, which is what I have here. I have 4 2nd Corps and 1 from 9th Corps. So 1, and then I'm going to go up to here, 2, 3, 4, and 5, taking special care to stay away from the enemy units so I don't end up with the artillery there. Now you can see Hancock kind of there on the edge of everything, okay, on the side there. Alright, so I've abandoned the entrenchments. I pulled myself out of that dangerous situation, which after playing this is about the 3rd or 4th time I've played this. That seems to me would be the most logical standard move unless Lee is sick. Now if Lee is sick, which means you would not be able to pull that maneuver off as the Confederacy, then you could probably look at some different options. Okay? Alright. So, we've got ourselves moving along here. And now at the end of the activation, the active leaders will get flipped over, okay, and basically be exhausted. So you won't be able to use them again, okay, during that particular turn. Right. So, Grant is now exhausted, and Hancock is. And now we turn it over to the rebels. Now, for the rebels here, the big question is, when do you withdraw? When do you pull back things here? So what I think I'm going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to activate the space here with Lee and Jubal Early's corps. And I'm going to go ahead and start trying to match Hancock's movement there. Okay. Now the nice thing about this is then I can take Field's unit, because since I'm using the army leader activation, and I can march him over 1 space here, which will cost him 2 movement points, and then he'll be all with his corps again. So when I want to move 1st Corps, they'll be all organized and all set up there and stuff. Okay. And again, notice they don't get exhausted whenever they march. It's the leaders that get exhausted, not the units. Okay. All right. So let's take the bad old man. And we're going to go ahead and move them south. We'll head down here 1, 2. Now I'm just using early to kind of mark where I'm going here. Okay. But now, here's the thing though too about movement. Is notice here between Wickham's Crossing and Mary Oaks, there's no black line. Those are the roads. Artillery must follow the roads. They cannot go quote unquote cross country. Okay, and it's not beneficial for most other units to do too, because basically Civil War armies did not do that. If you played great campaigns in the American Civil War, you already know that sticking to the road is your best bet. Everything else costs a ridiculous amount of movement to do. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, and since there's no enemy artillery adjacent to Hanover Courthouse, I'm going to go ahead 3, 4, and I'm going to come down here to McKenzie's Corner and stop there with Jubal Early and his crew. And I want to send Lee along with him too, down to there. So Lee leaders have 7 movement points as well. Okay, I'm going to leave Breckenridge behind since the Union abandoned that, just in case the Union decides to get a little fancy and try to come down through there and push on. Okay? Alright, so I've moved those guys. I will flip both of these leaders, both Lee and Jubal Early. And now we move on to impulse number 1. So the Union's up again here at this point. I think just to show you how combat works, I'm going to go ahead and make this next move. Maybe not. Let me see here. I'm trying to think if I want to bring Sheridan down and challenge Hampton and try to push across the river there. And then I could quickly try to bring Burnside's corps down. Because the bad thing about moving Early's unit away from here is now you can come straight down this road because you don't have to worry about the artillery issue with the extra movement points. Or I could just bring Burnside down now, huh? Let's see. That'd be 1, 2, 3, but it costs 4 movement points to cross the river. So I could wait till next time, and then I could concentrate the cavalry down there too. Or I could leave Burnside here to cover things and start pulling out Warren, or I can pull Wright out as well too. Decisions. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and let's send Burnside's corps down to start with this here. So we'll go 1. 1 because it's not touching there. So 1, 2, 3, 4 because there is horse artillery here, and that will bring Burnside's corps down to here. At least most of it anyway. Crittenden is still back up there, and he'll be down here now at Bethel Church with his corps, and he'll be finished. Okay. Alright, now it is impulse 1, and normally I would have to do the sunset die roll, but I'm not going to go ahead and do that right now because, on a 2 6-sided dice you can't get a 1. Alright, now for the Confederates, let's see. Now Hampton's down here at Hanover Courthouse, but cavalry cannot entrench. Let's see, should I go ahead and withdraw one of these corps, pull them out, pull them back to someplace else, maybe to a more defensible position as the Confederates? I could do that, but I'd have to be careful about doing that. Yeah, you know what? I think that's what I'll do, and then I can always give myself an opportunity to counterattack. So I'm going to activate Anderson's corps, and I'm going to send them down this way. So 1, 2, actually 3, because now we've got them across the river, and then I'll send them down to Wickham's Crossing for 5. So Anderson's men will be down there. All right, impulse 2. Now, Union forces. Well, I've got Warren. I could do that. I could try to hit Hill with one of the corps, either with Warren's corps, or I could hit them with Wright's corps. Or, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit Hill with Warren's corps just to show you how the combat works for this. And we'll get... I'll see if I can get some dice here and such to kind of illustrate and outline that kind of thing. Okay. Now, just like usual with stuff with the area impulse games, you're going to have a point unit for the assault side, and then of course you're going to have a lead unit. Or I forget which is which. The terminology basically means who's the guys that are taking the first hits, who are the guys out in front, so to speak, the main defenders, if you will, of that particular force. Okay. So again, I'll do this just to illustrate combat. I'm not saying this is the best idea in the world. But I mean, hey, it might go my way. You never know. Okay. All right. So the attacking force, you're basically going to take your lead unit, which out of this corps here, that'll be one of the 4. So we'll say it's Lockwood. Okay. So you get the corps' assaulting value, which is +4. So you get +2 for each additional fresh infantry, cavalry, and artillery unit participating in the attack. So I'm going to have the entire 5th Corps slam into Hill here. So that's going to be 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So that's going to be +12 with the entire 5th Corps ready to slam in so far. 12. Okay. Each exhausted infantry or cavalry, but I don't have any of that. Confederate assault if it's Lee. I don't have that. And -1 if it's different corps. Now, of course, that only can happen if you have the army leader. Or, I guess, well, no, actually, no, because defending-wise, yeah, be different. By the way, should have mentioned this already, but stacking is very similar to other area impulse games. 10 of your own units in each space is what you can have. And I think I've already mentioned the bridge thing, where you can only send 5 across at a clip. Okay. All right, so we got a value of 12. That's there. And if you use the advanced rules, because there's some basic rules, there's some advanced rules, and there's some optional rules too, you can have your leader participate, adding +1 to it. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that just to show you how the leader loss thing works too. So overall, that's going to be +13 for Warren's Corps that is going to try and slam its way into AP Hill. So we'll go ahead and mark that here. There we go. 13. Bam, baby. All right. Yeah, you can see 13? Yeah, you can see 13. Okay. I guess I could rotate it this way so you can actually... Let me see if I can... There we go. Does that work? No, probably not. Actually, it does have to sit up. Okay. So 13. Okay, so let's do the Confederate defenses now. So the Confederates. We will have the forward unit. So that's the terminology here, the forward unit. So we'll go ahead and let that be Heath. Now, Heath has a defense value of 6. The numbers are attack, defense, and movement. So that will give the Confederates 6 right off the bat. Okay, +1 for each fresh infantry, cavalry, or assault involved. So that's 6, or artillery I should say, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 so far, +8. And of course the terrain effects, which over here at Oxford is another +3, so that's 11. This one goes to 11 for the Confederates there. Okay, did not cross a creek or river boundary, okay, to launch this attack, so we don't have to worry about that. And the entrench marker will actually take them up to +13, and Lee, Lee is active, so that will actually take them to 14. And if I throw an AP heal, that'll give them 15. So you know what? We're going to throw in everything, including the kitchen sink. So we'll throw an AP heal as well, and that will give them +15. All right. So the Confederate defenses there are all the way up to 15. So now let's see what the die roll is going to be like. Because now we take this number that we generated, the 13 and the 15, and we're going to add them to a die roll of 2d6. So here comes the Union forces. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory. Like they used to say on the old Bud Light commercial, not so good, only got a 5. So 13 and 5 is 18. Yikes. So it looks like the only way the Union's going to win this battle is going to be if the Rebs roll snake eyes. Oh, wish I was in a land of cotton, old time there, long forgotten. Look away, ouch, look away, ouch, look away, ouch, Dixieland. Okay, so, oh, I forgot their artillery, so actually should have been +16. Sorry about that. The 3rd Corps artillery got pushed down towards the boundary there when I moved Anderson out, so actually should be +16. Okay, so 13 plus 5 is 18, ding, and then 16 plus 8 is 24. Uh-oh, okay, so, and again, you know, there's basically 3 results here with this kind of assault, with the area impulse rules. You either victorious, you inflict casualty points on the enemy, you fail, which of course then causes the attacker to have some damage, and the defender basically almost no damage, and then of course you also have a stalemate result when the 2 totals are exact. This one of course is a repulse, okay? So the assaulting units that were fresh are exhausted. Ouch. So everybody that participated in this, the entire 5th Corps, is now whipped. They've been taken out behind the woodshed. Ay caramba. So that can't be good. Now for the Confederates, since they were victorious, they, let's see. Of course, if there was exhausted units, which I didn't have, they would be eliminated. Yikes. Okay. have to retreat. It was a mandatory assault. Mandatory assault means, hey, we didn't have the area contested when the attack began. Okay? And actually that's it. The defender doesn't get anything. There's no effect on the defender's units. So, the core is in good shape. Okay? Now, that 5 I rolled also counts as the sunset die roll for this particular turn. So there will be a third impulse because we rolled a 5. Okay? Now, so, the Rebs managed to get themselves here now with a good situation. They got a completely exhausted enemy 5th Corps, which is not going to be good for them. Now, the question is what to do next. I think what I'm going to do for the Rebels is I think I'm going to activate Hanover. Is that Hanover Junction? Whoops. Yeah, Hanover Junction. I'm going to activate Hanover Junction, and I'm going to take Breckenridge's independent unit, and I'm going to go ahead and pull them out and pull him down here to Hanover Courthouse to kind of give Hampton's cavalry units there a little extra help when the Union tries to come across, which of course will be probably next turn. So here we go. We're going to activate Breckenridge. So 2. Oh, he won't be able to make it, will he? Let me just make sure that river for that particular movement thing, I'm pretty sure the river thing, it doesn't make a difference. If the river's there with the artillery, yeah, let's see. Let me just make sure with the example. They give you an example here to clarify that. So let's just take a look at that real quick here. 28 and 32 are not adjacent. So let's see. So we're talking about 28 and 32. Where is 32? 28 and 32. Okay, because basically they've got the river boundary here, but the river, along with this little red and white speckled thing, so to speak, yeah, because it's more like a corner here on that space there, down here at Norman's Ford, which hopefully this has been shown. Yeah, it's shown up on the very bottom of the screen there. So that is not, but the other one is adjacent. The example they give is 29. You have to move into 29 or 33 first. Okay, so 29 is here, 33 is here. Okay, so the river apparently doesn't matter. So unfortunately, I can't get Breckenridge all the way down to Wilson, but I've activated him, so I'm kind of pot committed here. Curses, what do I do with him? Let's see if I can take him a different route and beat him back with early again. So this is 2, 4. Nah, I'm not going to be able to, huh? Now, even if I go the other direction, 2. Yeah. Alright, well, you know what? Let's put him with Anderson then. We'll try to move him to here. Again, notice I didn't flip him. He's not exhausted. Alright, Union here was the third impulse now. Alright, well, Warren being hammered is not the best thing on the face of God's green earth. That was bad. That was very bad. But I'm going to leave Warren there since he's exhausted. I might as well leave him there. And I'm going to go ahead and activate right up here and start to bring right around, so to speak, to the east. And again, try to get him to come across so I can kind of try to overload these crossings down here. There's 3 of them. And see if I can get to them before the Rebs can get to them. I could leave right there and try to keep pressure on the south end. I mean, I could swing into here and start to try to isolate AP Hill. That's an idea, isn't it? Yeah, you know what? I think that's what I'll do. Let's do that instead. So I'll move these guys down to here, which will illustrate another rule for y'all. Move these guys into here. We'll cross the creek, which basically takes all of your movement factors. Okay. Now, if you move into a space that only has solely enemy cavalry there, once the move is finished, then the cavalry can retreat 1 space. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and pull them back to Elliott's Crossing. Now, of course, Wright's Corps is finished. Now, since I didn't have a die roll, I will need to do one now. And, of course, I'm trying to make sure I don't get 3 or less. Now, of course, you all realize that since I just said that out loud, you know what this is going to be, right? Well, okay. It kind of came up half right. Came up as a 6. So, we will continue. Alright, so now the rebels. Now the question is, do I want to go ahead and pull Hill's Corps out now that everybody's kind of whipped up there, not moving around, and try to bring Hill down into position so that he'll be ready. Or I could have him cross the river and try to attack, but I don't like that idea. So let's let's start bringing Hill down, and we'll move him. We'll activate his corps and bring him down this way. So again, I like to use the leaders when I'm going to activate the corps. So that's 1, 3, and then 5. So I'll reconcentrate Anderson and Hill together for the time being. Which that should maximize here. Let's see, 4, 4, 8, 9. Yeah, that's basically pretty close to maximizing everybody. All right, 4th impulse now for the Union. All right, now the question is, what do I want to do with Sheridan's people? And then I've got a couple of units here. Like I've got Crittenden from the 9th Corps. I've got, who is that? Russell from the 6th Corps who needs to come down that way. I need to kind of concentrate my forces again here. And then I got to figure out what to do with Sheridan. So the question is, should I send Sheridan racing down to try and grab one of these bridges and get across the bridge away from Hampton? Let's try that and then see if maybe next turn... I could use the advantage, though, too. Now, the advantage marker in the game, again, like an area impulse game, is basically a way that if you have the advantage, you get to do something with it, and then you have to give it to your opponent, who, of course, then can do the same thing and then has to give it back to you. Okay? Because what I can do is activate 2 areas. Or I could use the rally. I could use leaders in one area to flip to their active side. So what I could try to do is get Hancock's 2nd Corps across the river down here. But then I would give it to the rebels. So what I really want to do is try to time this so there's a good chance it'll be the sunset die roll. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's start with Crittenden here, and let's try to get him back with Burnside. So Burnside can try to push across here to Hanover Courthouse if that's possible. That's a bit of a risk. Or should I use Sheridan first? Let's move Sheridan's corps first. So we'll do Sheridan up here. Now they have 7 movement points because, of course, we're talking cavalry here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, hold on a second. I lost track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'll do that. 6. I'll bring Sheridan's cavalry corps over here across the river. Now, let's hope my luck doesn't run out with the sunset die roll. Down at the Sunset Grill. Oh, that's something else. Woo! Cut that one a bit close, didn't I? Yes, I did. Woo! Because it's impulse 4. So that's 5. Alright, so the Rebs now can do something. So what should I do with the Rebels? I have Hampton's cavalry there. I'm kind of happy with all of that for the moment. I could just pass, or, I mean, there's no reason not to dig an entrenchment just in case the Union comes, right? Or I could activate Breckinridge again. That's true, because, again, in this game, since when you move a unit, it doesn't become exhausted, which, again, that's one of the bigger rules, I think, if you've played area impulse games before. That's one of the harder ones to kind of really wrap your head around. So, yeah, that's just something to keep in mind, because, so used to, oh, I move a unit, so when I move it, then they go from fresh to spent. And that doesn't happen here. It's about the leaders, okay? But it doesn't happen to the units. Unless, of course, there's a combat result, and then, they're exhausted. But even then, when they're exhausted, they can still move. I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check on that. Yeah, because it doesn't say that an exhausted unit cannot, because an exhausted unit can be added to the attack. So even exhausted units can move. So technically I could move Warren's Corps if I wanted to. But of course, you know, their movement factor is pretty low now. Yeah, that's very much the case here. So, alright, so we'll do that. We'll slide Breckinridge in here over to Hanover Courthouse, just in case. Alright, now, the problem is, of course, if I use the advantage for Hancock here, and I don't roll 5 or less, then the next turn, that means Robert E. Lee would be able to flip to fresh side Hill and Anderson. That's a big gamble, man. Sorry, I didn't realize the camera wasn't catching Mr. Sheridan there. Such a big map, kind of up and down here. You know, playing solitaire and all. Let's see. Whew. Let's see. Should I press my luck? Should I go one more turn? I think the answer to that is... I don't know. That's the answer to that, right? Let's see. That would be... What would that be? 1, 2, 3, 5. I could concentrate Burnside's Corps completely. For what it's worth, because I mean their combat factors are not so hot. Ninth Corps was not exactly the sharpest knife in the Army of the Potomac drawer. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna push my luck one more time here. So 1, 2, 3, and then into here for 5. Okay, let's see if I get away with this. I'll motivate my dice. Trying to think of a song that would work. Ah, here we go. This song will work. Let me go on like that blister in the sun. Let me go on. Oh, hey, I guess my dice like it when I sing to them. See, y'all thought I was just singing for fun, something to do. Nope. There's method to my madness. Look at that. Boom. There's a 9. So we continue on. All right. So now that Breckinridge is here at Hanover Courthouse, that means I'm going to activate that space again, and I'm going to dig in, baby. Woo! All right, up to impulse number 6 here now. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to give up the advantage, and I'm going to flip Hancock to fresh. Here we go, boys and girls. Oh, one thing I forgot to do. Ugh, how dumb of me. I forgot. I should have been laying down Union control markers here as I've been going, because that gets to be extremely important whenever you're trying to trace that line of supply back. Because if it doesn't have a Union marker on it, that of course means that it's Confederate controlled, because you know the Confederacy begins with everything that isn't marked with a Union marker at the beginning of the game. Alright, so we flipped Hancock, and now I'm going to try and get Hancock across the river here. So here we go. So 1 across the Pamunkey. So 1, 2, 3. Should I continue downward? Or should I try to go all the way down to Cold Harbor and swing? Nah, I like this actually. So 1, 2, 3. Now I have to be careful about being surrounded here. But then that puts me within striking distance of Richmond. But then I can go 4, 5 down to Mechanicsville. Yeah, you know what? 4. Yeah, because they're not. Oh no, they are adjacent. Ah, look at that. Look at that right there. Ah, look at that. It is so 1, 2, 3. And then into here would be 5. Okay, so we'll move all the way down to here with Hancock's Corps. Okay. Alright, and again I'll have to put down some control markers here. Now I have Hawes Shop under my control, which means that's worth a victory point. So now up here on the general records track, which is way up here in the top right hand corner, I can go ahead and give myself a victory point. Because if you don't capture Richmond, then at the end of the turn, which is June 3rd, which was the end of the Cold Harbor assault, then you score victory points from there. All right, here we go. Now I am hoping for a 6. Luck be a lady tonight. Oh, hot dog, look at that. As Eartha Kitt would say, it's perfect. Perfect. Alright, cool. So now it's going to end the day. So the Confederacy is SOL. Too bad for them. Alright. So end phase. Okay, for the night phase and stuff. Advantage marker goes back to 0, which of course is now on the Confederate side, naturally. I'm kind of pan out here for the big view as we wrap up this video. Alright, then replacement points are spent by both sides. Now the Union has 3 every night, the Rebels have 1. Well, the Rebels don't have anything to do replacement points on, because of course all their combat units are just fine. The Yankees have 3, and of course I'm going to have to use them with Warren's Corps over here. So 1, 2, 3, but only 3. So, as the dude would say, that's a bummer, man. Alright, so I got 3 there. Okay, now the Union can also go ahead and do entrenchments, increasing, either putting a new level 1 entrenchment or increasing to a level 2 in a space at this point in time. Alright, oh, I almost forgot. Exhausted artillery always gets turned over for free. So actually almost all of Warren's Corps is going to be back ready for battle because the artillery got there for free. Okay, but the Union, of course, now has 0 replacement points. As far as digging in goes, yeah, let's do that. I'm going to dig Hancock in for obvious reasons, just in case the Confederates get lucky and are able to assault over there for that turn. For next turn, I should say. And I think it's the only digging in I really want to do for the Union right now. Yeah, I think that's enough digging in. Okay, for the Confederates, I'm not going to spend the replacement point. And for the Rebels, I don't really see the need to dig in. I mean, I guess 6th Corps could come flying down in, get across Elliott's crossing and put pressure on Ashland, but that's true. Maybe I should have moved a rebel force over here. I got this cavalry to slow them down, so I can look at the bright side with that. And a Union would need the advantage back to reactivate that. So, okay, so that's fine there then. We'll just be done with that. Okay, alright. Union player has not won the game. So now we will move on and go back to... Oh, and of course, one other thing too, I'm sorry. You can remove any entrenchment markers from any spaces after you've gone and tried to dig your new ones in. So, there's that too, as well. Because there's only so many entrenchment markers in the game. Okay, I think that's that. So now we're ready to move on to the next turn, which of course will be May the 28th. And at the dawn phase, all the leaders get flipped to their fresh side. Now it'll be interesting to see because now the rebels have the advantage, which means they'll be able to activate 2 areas if they want at the beginning of this turn. That could be ugly. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that's going to play out. Okay, whoops, almost forgot about Grant up there and Burnside. And of course, I'll close this video with, we'll see how is Robert E. Lee, how's his health. And the answer to that is, ooh, interesting. Not so good, a 5. So that means now Lee will be removed from the map and put on the May 29th turn to return potentially, depending on how the health die roll goes for that turn. Okay? Alright. And that's that, so to speak, as they say in Goodfellas after Tommy gets whacked. Now, I'm sure some of you that play this game, you might have noticed I did not change the weather on the 1 impulse because I wasn't using that rule. I'm just trying to show off some different rules. Too. There's also the bridge demolition rules, which exist like the other area impulse games, but I didn't illustrate those either. I'm just trying to give you a feel for this. Overall, just very quick, pithy review, so to speak. I do enjoy the game. It's an interesting take on this part of the Overland campaign. It's also interesting for the maneuver aspect of it, moving the armies around, using the advantage, racing along, so to speak. Oh, shoot. I did forget the battle, the leader casualties. So basically, leader casualties are kind of hard to come by in this game because in order to even have a shot at leader casualties, both sides have to roll the same number on the dice. And of course, that didn't happen in our battle. So I'm sorry I forgot about that, but that is basically no problem there, so to speak. Alright, this is starting to run a little long, which I don't like my videos to go too long here, but as you can see, there's a lot to do with this. There's a lot to take into consideration, and it is kind of very much like a sort of chess situation, you know, move, counter move at times with this. Okay, I will say that this also seems like it's an excellent two-player game because there's other things here. There's false report markers where you can put down, you know, more than one of the core leaders and basically, you know, oops, that's not where he really was, you know, kind of thing. I'm pretty sure that's how those ones work. That's in the optional rules. I didn't really look at it, to be honest. I'll be completely honest about that. But the misdirection and all that kind of stuff that you can use. So that's all part of things too. So okay. So overall, if you like the Overland campaign, I would give this a look. I have not messed with Birth of a Legend, which is actually the same system with the 7 Days campaign, part of the whole Peninsular campaign in 1862. And I understand this year or next year, there's the Chancellorsville campaign coming out using the same system. So lots of this to look forward to. Alrighty. Next time, I'm not sure next time, because next time, of course, towards now that we're in June here, we'll be looking at the Peninsular campaign. I am looking at a couple of things here, maybe even retro. I've got Hollandspiel's 7 Pines or Fair Oaks, their shot and shell series of rules. I've got that over on my shelf to be looked at yet. So, and I've decided to reacquire the Glory system from GMT Games, which basically covers 1st and 2nd Bull Run, Chickamauga, Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville, and also covers the last one is Cedar Creek and Antietam. So that'll be showing up here on my table eventually too. I'm not sure exactly when. Not sure exactly how long this is going to go, but this just keeps running and running and running. Like I said, it's been almost 3 months. I've read 2 books, played a number of different Civil War games, and so far I'm not tired or bored. So I'm just going to keep pushing forward and, you know, seeing what I can pick up, what I can dust off, and just having myself a good time in general, which of course is part of the point, right? All right. So anyway, for solo play, I mean, I do think this is good. The area impulse, as you can see when I was trying to make that decision about spending the advantage to refresh Hancock and use him again for the turn. Which I'm pretty sure I could use that right away. Yeah, at the beginning of any assault phase. And yeah, okay. So that's what I did. So, okay, so there you go. Not war, but murder. Which is interesting because toward the end of the 7 days, A.P. Hill said the same thing about Robert E. Lee's attacks, which basically the coordination fell apart. It's an interesting campaign to look at from both sides of the coin. But yeah, there was a lot of brutal frontal assaults where Confederates were getting mowed down like crazy. In the last couple of weeks, I took my boys to Malvern Hill battlefield and also to Cold Harbor as well too. And we're planning on doing a few more. You know, the boys like walking and they like the nature and stuff, and I like the history plus the nature. I mean, you know, it's cool. So we're going to keep doing that one every weekend. I mean, it's a good thing for the quarantine thing because, you know, there's not a whole lot of people at the battlefields because, you know, unless you're there like on the anniversary date of battles, there's not a whole lot of people. So works out well. All right. So with that closing thought, this is Tim Korchnoi from Bones Wargaming saying thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I don't know if it'll be from 7 Pines or from someplace else. We'll have to wait and see what hits the table next, to be honest. I'm not sure where I'm going to go next. But I might be leaning towards the 7 Pines because that was May 31st, June 1st, somewhere around there. So I'm trying to do games that line up with the historical dates. So, all right, as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.